response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought?
Not entirely true. We do have some rational thoughts today, even some fun ones, some interesting ones, some relevant ones. And I'm going to introduce to you a guy that I've known for a while. And man, it may take me a minute to introduce. He has a lot of accolades here. Our guest today is an award-winning author of the heart-wrenching business fable, The Unexpected Tour Guide. He's been a guest of international sales shows such as The Go-Givers, Influencers, Making a Significant Impact, hosted by our good friend Bob Berg, and The Buyer's Mind with Jeff Shore. Now, this gentleman has been a quoted source for publications such as Sales and Marketing Management Magazine, National Federation of Independent Business, and Peak Sales Recruiting. For over 30 years, this guy has coached and led sales teams in multiple industries and has been among the top sales performers and leaders in the nation. You'll find out why in a minute here. For 10 years, he's been a state sales manager in the Texas Gulf Coast area with the Fortune 500 insurance company you've heard of, Aflac. So at the end of 2013, Jeff, see, that's good branding, isn't it? Jeff led field sales management with Aflac to pursue his love of writing, speaking, and sharing success principles around the world. His book is called The Unexpected Tour Guide. And man, this is a good one. You got to get this book. It's received endorsements from best-selling authors such as Brian Tracy, Bob Berg, and Tom Hopkins, as well as sales leaders such as Paulus Amos, former president of Aflac, and Michael Tomlinson, the former senior VP and director of U.S. sales in Aflac. Now, additionally, The Unexpected Tour Guide has received the Bronze Level Award in Business Fable category from the prestigious Axiom Business Book Awards in 2015. He's earned a BS in education from Jacksonville State University, M&M from Texas, an M&M from Texas A&M. That's a lot of M. That's like candy. M&M from Texas A&M University Commerce, and a CLF from the American College, and is a business professional member of the National Speakers Association. Mouthful. I'd like to introduce you my good friend and mentor, best-selling author Jeff West. How you doing today, Jeff?
Doing well, my friend. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
That's a tongue twister. M&M from A&M. Is that Masters of Manipulation? What is that? M&M.
Master of Music Composition in my case.
Music. Now we didn't even. That's brand new for me.
Yeah,
You're
the bachelor's is in music ed, and the master's is in music composition.
Oh my gosh!
Those 2 degrees and $5 will get me a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Hey, now my daughter's in the music industry. She's in charge of all the music curriculum for one of the largest charter school networks in the country.
Wow.
So it's my nephew actually was so good. He's in an orchestra and a symphony and wasn't in Kalamazoo. He moved down to Missouri, I think. Anyway, enough about music. I love music. It doesn't strike me. I'm not surprised that you've got that talent because you're creative. But I want to talk about 2 things to get out the start here. Number one, your book, which I was fortunate enough to help you do nothing because it was so good. It didn't need any writing or editing. We did a cover. But man, the business fable, that was like a really, really great story. Why did you choose to do a business fable as opposed to a how-to book?
Well, basically, it's because stories sell and stories teach, and it's my personal favorite way to learn and to communicate. I remember some of the first sales books that I was ever given, Augmendino books, like The Greatest Salesman in the World. And there's so many good ones out there, but people, when they get a how-to book, they will often do well and they will be successful at implementing a lot of the steps. But oftentimes when it comes to a business fable, it touches them so much in their heart that it connects that emotional side of the equation with the logic of what they're trying to do, and they retain it. It fuses in what they're doing.
And this is obviously a business fable with a little bit of magic to it. So, did you do the Hemingway thing? Were you like getting really happy when you wrote that, or it just came to you? I'm curious. No judgment.
Not since college. No.
I do alcohol, Jeff. Okay, whatever. It's legal.
Okay, well, maybe with that.
I said Hemingway. I didn't say Cheech and Chong, but
it's Jeff and Doug's best movie or next movie or whatever. The whole idea with it, the story, of course, as you know, and by the way, I got to brag on you. You didn't tell, you acted like you had very little to do with this book. You were such a good mentor to me in getting that book together. Yeah, it may not have needed as much editing as a lot of situations, but you were so instrumental with me in knowing, okay, how to position the book, how to do so many things with the book. You were instrumental with helping me know how to go about getting the right endorsements. I mean, you don't sell yourself short. I know you're a humble guy, but don't sell yourself short. You really did a great job for me.
Wow. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, it's my honor. The story, truthfully, it uses a lot of the sales situations that I was in my life, learning how to become a better sales professional. And then I took real characters out of my life too. As a matter of fact, the sales manager in the story is a gentleman named Jack Amberson, and he was in real life my first sales manager. And the character that we wrote in there, it was exactly like him. I got his permission not only to use his character as a person, but to use his name, and he was awesome about that. As a matter of fact, about 2 weeks ago, I was actually back in the state of Alabama. I had a couple of speaking events there, and Jack and I spent the day together, and he's just such a neat person, but he was a real person. The story, of course, revolves around a young salesman and a homeless man that kind of changes his total perspective. And the homeless man was actually someone that I knew in Houston. And so it's a lot of stories in my life that have actually touched my heart. I worked into the parable itself. And it was one of those things that once I started it, I couldn't stop it. It just kept coming to me. I think that's a lot of the way it happens for a lot of people. And it was an absolute joy. And the funniest story about it, my wife was reading it in the first chapter. She started late one night on the first chapter, and then she went on to bed. The next night, she starts reading the manuscript, and she's reading it in bed. And at about 1 o'clock in the morning, she elbows me, and she says, "Dadgum you, I could not go to sleep. I couldn't put this thing down."
I'm not sure if it's, I can't pinpoint why it's a page turner right away. I have to read it again. It's been a couple of years now, but that is an amazing gift to be able to craft a story and have it keep going. Professional Hollywood screenwriters get paid big bucks to pull that off with breadcrumbs and open loops, all those things we know to keep it going. In your case, it's a perfect blend of not just storytelling, but character development and this mystery that, as you know, from sales and marketing and our psychology, like, right, we got to figure this thing out, right? So that's key number one, folks. If you want to, convey, sell, influence, persuade more, you've got to have that ability to not, give them a little bit and make them want come to you and all that stuff. So that's brilliant stuff, Jeff.
Thank you.
You spent a lot of time at Aflac, and I love, we all love the duck, of course. You had a long career there in sales and working with them, whatnot. How difficult was it for you to say, okay, love you guys, I'm going to go off on my own?
It was one of those decisions in life that it was just time. It was the time I was blessed to be in a position where I could do that. And I can't underestimate the blessing of having that as a choice. But the career had gone well, life was going well, but I have such a passion to get out there and work with, especially young salespeople and coach people in entrepreneurship. So it was just such a passion, and it was time for me to make a change. I had literally, at the time I made that change, I'd been in sales and sales leadership for close to 30 years, I guess it was at that point, 20 of that actually with Aflac. And I was a district manager for 8 years, a regional manager for 2, and then a state manager for 10 years. And it's a total blessing. I absolutely love the company to this day. But it was the right timing in my life. I had some good coaching and some mentorship about that a little bit from our friend Bob Berg. Matter of fact, he's the one who, of course, introduced me to you to kind of make some things happen in that area. And it was a little bit of a relief, a little bit of an excitement because I was doing something new. And I was blessed that I had that as a choice. And I know a lot of people don't have that, and I was blessed in that way.
A couple questions on that, because a lot of people who've been I guess, involved or embedded in the corporate world or working for a company for so long, it's hard to have that entrepreneurial mindset where I'm going to go off on my own without a, consistent safety net. You might have had some safety net from your, savings and whatnot, but the monthly stuff from a salary and commissions, all that from a company, much different than saying, okay, I'm going to now talk as a speaker or an author or a coach, and people are going to pay me. What did you do to prepare yourself to go from employee to entrepreneur?
Well, in my case, the transition was a little bit easier maybe than it would be in some, because in that 20 years with Aflac, I actually was an independent contractor. I was self-employed, and as far as most ways go, but it's also like any corporate sales structure too. Yes, I was self-employed, but there was always somebody with Aflac that I was responsible to, and that you're responsible for your numbers and creating the success, but you don't really have that day-to-day management of someone else. And so I had employees of my own, and I was very much entrepreneurial in that. And that's one of the things that actually attracted me to that career. And there are a lot of great companies in the insurance industry that have a similar model, and they do an awesome job. But in my case, because of that, it was a little bit of an easier mindset for me to think, well, I can work for myself and do anything. And because I had done it at that point for 20 years. And so the harder choice on that for me was when I first started doing that with Aflac, because I went from being in a sales position where I was an employee and had a base plus commissions kind of thing going on, and then made that jump. That was scarier for me, but again, it was the right time in my life. And I struggled in the beginning, and when I'm speaking in front of groups, I'll tell a little bit of my story about how in the beginning I struggled quite a bit. Even moved my family from a nice middle-class neighborhood into an area where we were living in a mobile home, and it was not a nice mobile home. It was the exact opposite.
Under a bridge by the river. Yeah, okay.
Down by a river. But it was a very difficult time emotionally for me, because I was feeling like a failure. And I always, when I'm speaking, I use the branding of fusion points now about finding that emotional and logical connection that will keep you going. And for me, that connection was my daughters. I mean, the only true love at first sight that I've ever known in my life were for my two daughters, because from the moment I met them, I was hopelessly and helplessly in love with them forever. And it's always been that way. They've always had that safety net in me, knowing that I'm that kind of person with them. But they became that emotional connection with my logical plan. I literally carried pictures around in my daytimer back then of my daughters. And if I made a sales call and someone kind of was less than pleasant, didn't matter. I'd go back out to the car and I would look at this and say, I'm getting them out of the situation they're in now. I will do whatever I have to do. The line has been drawn in the sand. We're going to go kick rear end. We're going to do whatever we have to do to make sure their life is better. And so it's to this day. It's funny with what I'm doing now. They're adults. They're wonderful adults. They've got children of their own now. Their lives are good. So even though I still love them that much, that won't drive me every day, because they don't need me to take care of them anymore.
Right,
so I have to refocus a little bit with what I'm doing now. But it's just been such a wonderful, wonderful blessing on that.
Amazing. I love that. We'll get to the new driver in a moment. When your kids, let me ask you a question. Do they remember the mobile home and all that stuff, or?
They do, actually. They do. And I'll tell the story when one of the tougher things when we moved out of the house that we were living in, the owner of the house, we were renting, and the owner of the house did not live in the area. And he said, look, you can leave things in the garage until we sell the house, and that way you won't have to pay for a storage facility. He was absolutely wonderful to us. But in the course of what was going on, that realtor sold the house. And the realtor was supposed to let us know, but wasn't able to do that for whatever reason. And so the things that we had in that garage were given away to Goodwill. And most of it was not really a big deal, furniture and some things of that nature. But both my daughter's bicycles were in there. And they were 9 and 5, I think, at the time that this was going on. And as a father, when you have to tell your wonderful girls that you just their bicycles are gone and you can't buy them another one that day, that's a tough moment. And of course, they remember going through that. They remember about 6 months later when I was finally getting my head on right and making more money and getting back on my feet. I took them to Walmart one day. They got home from school and I said, "Hey, girls, get in the car. We're going to Walmart." And I didn't tell them why. And we get to Walmart and I'm running them up and down the aisles of Walmart, just playing with them. I'm kind of not shy, so I don't mind making a little bit of a scene. And anyway, we get back to where the bicycles were. And I said, "Whoa, stop, look up there. How did they get those bicycles up there?" And by this time, my oldest daughter especially was a little bit mortified. It just made it more fun. But my favorite day of my entire career life was right there in the middle of Walmart when I got down there, gave them both a big hug and a kiss and told them how much I loved them. And I said, "Guess what? You can have any bicycle in this store today because I can pay for it."
Oh my gosh. They a little cheery.
When my oldest daughter would, while she was still in college, she'd come down in the summers and do some work for me. She would, I would be speaking in front of the Aflac sales team, and on the last day, I would always tell a little bit of my personal story. And when my oldest daughter came in there, she and I both were just crying like babies because I was having a hard time getting through it with her in the room, and it brought back a lot of memories. So.
Outstanding. That is so touching. I love the motivation of the pictures in the daytimer. Yeah, we all had the daytimers. That's it's sales 101 stuff for you and I. But when you talk to these new people in the career, I mean, we've also seen a lot of shifts in the sales culture out there. Right. From what Bob mentioned today in our group call about overcoming objections, things like that. What's the if you had to give a new salesperson like 3 tips that you had like only 5 minutes to tell them, what would the 3 most important things you'd give a new guy in the sales career?
First thing I would tell them is you cannot expect a 6-figure income if you're only going to put in minimum wage effort. You've got to be willing to go out, get good at your craft, learn the craft, and then apply that. Because knowledge is not really power. You hear that phrase, knowledge is power. Well, I'll call BS on that. Knowledge isn't power. The use and application of knowledge can be very powerful in your life, but that can't. Then I would say to make sure in whatever you're selling, find something that you truly in your heart believe that your customer is better off by having that product or service on a day-to-day basis. In sales, we get the greatest thing in the world. We get a situation where we have people that have a need. Whatever that need might be, it's going to vary industry to industry, but people have a real need for your product or your service. And then you have a company that can provide that. And as a salesperson, you get paid for standing in the middle and making that connection happen. You don't have to sell anyone. You need to ask the right questions. You'll know your market and you'll know what's going on, but you need to ask the right questions and find out what those needs are and be genuinely focused on helping that person solve that issue with that company that you can put them together with. And when you do that, you will feel good about what you're doing. That in and of itself many times will help create a good emotional connection with you with what you're doing. And it will truly just it will help you keep after your career. And I guess if I were going to say the third thing, this is a personal one for me, but work like it's all up to you, pray like it's all up to God, and things tend to work out pretty well. So,
but three important tips to use or ignore, but ignore at your peril. Ignore at your peril, because Jeff knows what he's talking about. So you had this, great career at Aflac. You decided to go off on your own. You already had the independent thing going. So it was the mindset might have not been as dramatic as someone who's actually had a salary job, whatnot.
Right.
But you had a brand new product, and you just mentioned something before. You're putting a company together, and the client, and you have a vendor provider, which would be Aflac in your previous case. But now you've got your own product and service to offer.
Right.
And I'll tell you, if you want to know my quick story on that, but I used to sell telecom, and I got a great article coming out about how I used a newspaper article and a postage stamp to make about $250,000 on referral thing, because I was just giving the guy information that he didn't have, and he invited me in, blah, blah, blah. It's a long story. It's not much. It's your show. But the funny thing,
having a good time. You keep going.
Oh no, it's going to be a fun article. I can't remember. It was selling cellular phones, right? I mean, it was just, and now I forgot where I was going with it. Anyway, the point is, when you give something of somebody else's, right? A vendor that you're working with, it can be great. because you don't have to actually create the product. You just connect, and another department does fulfillment. And I had this company that I worked with, who shall remain nameless, who sold some of our telecom equipment, or services rather. And I worked up to about an $80,000 residual with this firm.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like fat, happy. I've got one big client, a bunch of little ones. And I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. I'll go out and, do some things here and there, but I didn't add any new clients for a year.
Right.
And then I got a letter one day. Hey, you haven't added any new clients for a year. Your residual is now terminated. I'm like, whoa, wait. I sorry. No new business. You don't get the old money you earned anymore. And that was the point that I'm like, okay, I get how this works now. So I said, I'm not going to be beholden to anybody else. I'm going to create my product, fulfill it, maintain a service, whatever it is, and sell it. That gave me, I'm not a control freak, but maybe I am. I don't know. It could be true.
For people who don't know, he just looked back at his wife on that one.
Am I? Because I said I'm not a control freak. I'm not sure what your opinion is. I got a peanut gallery back here. So anyway, when you launched your own book and speaking career, so mindset was clear. That's easy. But what about the tactical side or strategic side of setting that up? Can you talk about that for a minute?
Sure. I did the same process I did in sales my whole career. I started with a list of contacts. A lot of them were warm contacts for me. I made I reached out to them initially. I did something you taught me, which was absolutely perfect for what I was trying to do. I took my book that I was very proud of, but I sent copies of that out like crazy to people that I wanted to do speaking events for. I invested the cost of my book, but I was getting thousands of dollars when I showed up. So, hey, good business move. And so I remember being at a National Speakers Association meeting in Tampa, and was sitting at a table with some people that I absolutely totally respect and love that. And I said, they were talking about books and all this. I said, well, what's a good number of books to sell? And they had told me what the good number was. And I didn't say a thing because it would not have been appropriate, but basically because of a lot of the stuff that you did with me. And then when I would go speak in the books I was selling, I sold as much as they were talking about the first month. So that was just a good coaching thing that you actually did with me. Mm-hmm. But it was the sales process is the same. The only difference in the original analogy that I was using, I'm not putting them together with a company and standing in the middle. I am the company reaching out to them. But it's the same thing. I'm finding the needs. I'm helping them, because my whole focus is I want to help them be able to attract and retain a salesperson that will build such a bond with them that salesperson's never going to go away. Because especially in the insurance industry, which is what I came from, but it's really true in any kind of commission-based sales, if your turnover is 80%, you are not going to make your 20% sales increases. It's just not going to happen. No. And so you've got to learn how to build a chemistry that brings people in and then makes them want to stay. And if you can do that in leadership, you've got it beat.
Yeah. Your math only works in the government. It doesn't work in the real world. You're tracking 80 and getting 20. About that. Yes. Oh, I wish I was with Political Show, because I know we'd had so much fun. I mentioned I was talking to Lisa, and we went off on the libertarian thing for about half the show. It was like, right. It was fun.
Hey, there's one other thing. When you were asking me about sales tips a while ago,
yes.
I will tell you the thing that made my life so much easier in sales, and I actually learned it when I read Endless Referrals by Bob Berg the first time. And it was how to position yourself as the connector between people. And people should read the Bob's book and get that. But one of the processes that he really emphasized in that book was, rather than focusing on yourself when you're networking or doing anything, focus on putting people together that can help each other and be known as that connector. And so what I started doing that with my accounts. Like, I remember the first time I did it, it was a mortgage company in downtown Dallas, Texas. And I remember it was up on like the 21st floor of this building. And I sat down with the owner of the company, and I had called him ahead of time, said, hey, I'd like to get about 15 or 20 minutes with you. He was already my client. I said, I really want to pick your brain about something. And so I got with him. And the first thing I did was I said, first off, let me thank you for being my customer. I make my living, I feed my family based on having good clients like you that I can work with, and it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So thank you for that, number one. And the second thing I want to do is I meet so many people in the marketplace. I'm prospecting for new clients. I have a lot of existing clients. When I'm out there, would you please take a few minutes to tell me what I need to be asking these people to know if they would be a good referral for me to send to you? And it's so funny, Doug, when I did that, he took off his glasses and he said, well, I'm going to answer your question, but I got to tell you something first. And I said, what? And he said, I've been in business 30 years. I've had a lot of salespeople ask me for referrals. You're the first to ever ask me how you could refer business to me. He said, I'll thank you for that. And I said, well, that's great. Anyway, so we talked about how to, the questions I would need to be asking. And we actually even set up some monthly things at his place of business where we would invite clients in for both of us. And so it was a good situation on that. But the next thing I did, though, is I actually, and I recommend this to people when I'm teaching this concept, you generally will know a little bit about what your client's business would be. So you probably already have some good referrals in mind. And then what I would do is I would pick up my phone and I would call one or two right there sitting in front of them and say, hey, I've got a client that is in this industry. He's someone that I know, I like, I trust. And I think it might be a good situation for the two of you to meet. Would it be okay if I give him your name? Of course, they would always say yes. And then I said, well, you can expect his call and you need to meet this guy. And then I would just let it go at that. But what it does when you do that, it cements a great relationship between you and your clients. And it also generates a ton of referrals for both of you because you both are so glad about this. You're referring business to each other right and left. And so it was a great sales thing that I learned from Bob Berg. Actually, I adapted what he taught in this book for my industry.
Yeah, we could make a whole show about him and what he's done for us. I know that because we both, just so grateful for the guy.
Right.
Which begs the question, Doug. Tell me your story. Oh, I'll be happy to. So when I was at Nextel, it was a direct sales job. The top two guys at the company were both Bob Berg fans. We had read endless referrals, and we had our entire business was built. All the guys in his office cold calling. I cold called for 3 weeks, and when I was there for 2 years, and I was done. 100% referrals. And I did adapt one thing on the same issue of, giving referrals. I've never asked for a single referral, but I built my business on it. Mm-hmm. And I would take I was with a guy, I'd say, hey, can you give me like 10 or 20 of your cards, please? He says, 10 or 20? He goes, yeah. And at the time, he had a briefcase at the time. And I had a bunch of other cards in there. And I had a whole bunch of other people's with 10 or 20 cards there with rubber bands around it.
Right.
I said, give me 10 or 20 of yours. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, if you're looking for a plumber, you might want to check out this guy. If you're looking for an accountant, this is a real. So I'll be giving other referrals, right? And he see me, his cards go in, and these cards come out. And he's like, oh, that's interesting, right? I use your line too of how could I, send business your way. Right. But just doing that visually on the phone like you did or on a card, I had two guys. I was brand new, young guy, first year in sales really, and two guys who are now like our age at that point. They had their old grizzled guys with big businesses. One guy he was like a machine screw company, like one of the top 10 in the country. He says, oh, thank you very much. He says, just a minute. He goes back to his printer, his dot matrix printer, right? And rolls the thing off. He hands me a stack of paper this thick. This is my entire customer database from 30 years in business. Call them and tell them I sent you.
Absolutely.
There were like 2,000 people in there. And then it happened 2 times where a guy for 30 years in business printed up his entire database, hand to me and says, mention my name. So yeah, I never made a cold call. Yeah, TJ told me to call. It's brilliant stuff. Yeah. So yeah, endless referrals. We don't get a dime from Bob by endorsing his book, right? But it changed my life in sales for sure.
Mine too.
Yeah, good time. All right, so I love your 3 tips. I want to close out with a wacky story or something, maybe a story where sale didn't go through and it came through, or the first memorable story you have that would be interesting for listeners.
My favorite one to tell is about a sales manager that I didn't gel quite with. I don't know if I should tell this on your show or not.
Yeah, you're not mentioning names. I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours. I had one like that.
I'm going to grab my phone because I need an illustration here. I had a sales manager that was more focused on his life than he was on the life of the people that reported to him. Uh-huh. And he was not my favorite person. And I had pretty much decided that if I needed to, I'd just get out of management. I didn't want to deal with him anymore. And he was a great guy socially, and he's a good person, but he was just that working relationship wasn't a good fit for the two of us.
Yeah.
And so one of the other district managers had said, you know, you need to get everybody together to let us air out our differences, and we'll make this good. And so he agreed to have this meeting. He had 8 district managers in the room with him, and he said he had a definite Southern accent. I do too, I know, but he had a definite Southern accent, and he went around the room asking. Then he got to me, and he said, "Well, Jeff, what's your problem with me?" And I said, I won't say his name. I said, I only have one problem with you. You're a condescending son of a gun.
Yeah.
My friend sitting next to me looked down and went, "Oh no." But
You asked.
to his credit, he took it well. He didn't get upset. He said, "Well, you know, I'm sorry. I really don't mean to be condescending." He said, "My only problem with you, Jeff, is I can never get you on the phone. Why can't I ever get you on the phone?" And I went, "Caller ID."
Oh my God, that's so good.
And what I didn't know at the time is he had actually asked to be split, and he was giving away 5 of his 9 districts, and I was one of them. So he really didn't care anymore anyway.
Oh
But
my gosh.
after that, my career really took off. It was great. And I will tell one of my favorite stories as far as the sales process goes, because sometimes salespeople give up too soon. You don't ever want to create a situation where someone thinks you're a pest, or when you're trying to follow up with your prospects, but you want to build relationships. And I remember calling on an account. This was first quarter, I think January, February of 1994, or something like that. And we didn't get the sale immediately, but we stayed in there, and about 8 months later got just a little tiny window in the door. It was a school system, and so that was part of their benefit package. Got just a little tiny window in the door, but the next year we got the whole shebang. And I can't tell you how profitable that's been, but literally even that first year, I think I made like $75,000 in that account, which was a huge commission in that industry. And so never underestimate the value of following up and building that relationship, because it was the relationship. I'm still friends with the person who made that decision today. We're Facebook friends, and we keep in touch with each other. So don't forget that.
So Fusion Point's the name of your company. The book is called The Unexpected Tour Guide. What type of companies do you normally work with now?
I try to work mostly with companies. I have 2 focuses really in my business now. COVID kind of changed things a little bit, so I started actually adding another thing back in. I have the speaking part, where I'm working with any organization with leadership, when they've got a leadership team that they're building, whether it's a sales organization, or a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking at a university in Alabama, and it was a particular group and the leadership team for that group. Yeah. And so that's part of it. Anyone that's a business that has to have a leadership team, either in sales or in other areas, that I'll work with them. I also love to work with small companies and entrepreneurs that are facing struggles with just finding the right talent and bringing them in, and then keeping them. A lot of times it's because they can't afford to offer the employee benefits like a lot of other companies can. I've got some solutions in that area, and then I teach them how to create that atmosphere where when people bond with you, they never want to leave you.
Love it. Love it. So Jeff, how would I recognize a good lead for you? I got you first.
Good lead for me is going to be any company that has a sales team that needs sales and sales leadership training, or any small employer that is competing with the giants in their industry. Those are good leads for me.
Okay, good. So do you have a success story of a company that really took off under your tutelage?
I have worked with a lot of different groups as far as Aflac, different operations with Aflac. But the one I'm most excited about right now is actually the university that I just got through doing some things with. It looks like I'm going to be doing some things with their development team. They're trying to raise $30 million in about 5 years, which is a huge goal for them. And it's through contributions and all that. I'm going to be working with them on that. I get to pick and choose now And so that's
Yeah,
nice
nice.
position to be in. This one has multiple reasons that it's kind of my favorite thing right now. So
Okay, some personal stuff, but I can sense it right off the bat.
yeah. And what can I do? What can I do on my end to help? What do I need to be asking for you? I kind of know you so well. I know that answer, but I'm going to give you.
That's okay. We need to. Is Unexpected Tour Guide an audiobook yet?
It is not. And if you've got that's something you and I can talk about. If you've got
let's
a
talk
way
about it right now because people can benefit from this.
Okay.
Jeff's story, The Unexpected Tour Guide, is a page turner. I mean, his own wife couldn't put it down. I rarely read a book in one sitting. I did on this one. And as a publisher and marketing guy, I mean, I've read a lot of books, and I'm kind of a curmudgeon when it comes to them. I'm like, yeah, I've heard this before. Same old stuff. But your fable was a page turner. I mean, it was that good. An audio, the thing, and just some quick data points, but like, print books are, flat or down 9%. Electronic books up a little bit, single digits. The last 3 years running, audiobooks have seen double-digit growth rates.
Wow. Double
digits for 3 years running now. And this is partly due to the fact that we are embracing podcasting. After many years, I spent time in radio world, and I was looked down on podcasting when it first came out. Not so much now. Hello, here we are. But people are used to consuming and learning through audio, and it's a huge benefit because I listened to Steel Fear on a road trip from David Mann and his book, and audiobooks are a great way, especially the Fable, because you can listen to it in the background, get the emotional connection you mentioned. I'm not taking notes like in some books. I can't listen to some books and notes, but Malcolm Gladwell, Jeff West, audiobook. Very important.
You and I will have to talk about that, because if you've got sources that you do that,
it's not that complicated. The only complicated thing is that Audible and Amazon had this very, they got like a 24-hour period to approve a regular book when it's uploaded. For some reason, audiobooks takes like a month for approval.
Wow.
And I don't know why. I'm guessing it's because they're always checking on the plagiarism side, right? They've got things to scan that with Copyscape and whatnot.
That makes sense.
They can tell you. But audio, maybe they don't. I don't know. I don't know the details. All I know that you've got to use your own voice.
Oh, well.
There's a few people that I say, get a narrator. Your voice, as you know, Mr. Storyteller, would be just it's soothing and interesting.
Well,
so,
I
we
thought
can
that
talk
out
more
about doing that, and then I also want to get some sort of either royalty-free music or some sort of music that I can legally use to go with it, because I want kind of a jazz, like a slow jazz feel to it, like almost like not a New Orleans style, but you get the idea. It's got to be something that's between chapters and some background music.
Yeah, with some leaves rustling in the background. It's great. That there are. I've looked into the music side on this, Jeff. There are millions of musicians, starving musicians, that have wonderful tracks you can get for free or cheap. On
the trailer for the book that you've seen that's on my website, the trailer for The Unexpected Tour Guide, the music there was exactly what you just said. It was someone who.
And I know a really good composer. You just go to the mirror and look in the mirror. You'll see somebody there. So somebody who's got some background in music composition.
Yeah, but my hands do this now. It's not the same.
Beethoven was deaf. You can sit there and scratch it on a piece of paper. You can pull it off. Give it to somebody. Say, play this. The Unexpected Tour Guide, folks. It's a wonderful book written by a actual author. Because I don't say that lightly. Because we're a ghostwriting company. A lot of a large percentage of our clients are brilliant people, but don't have the time or skill to craft stories and to write well. You do. So get that thing in audiobook. Yeah, we could chat more about it, but it's not that complicated. Just record it and upload it. You have to have some produce it. I mean, I watched Oren Klaff talk about his $10,000 microphone and a studio with a director and producer and all that stuff. You could go down that road, but all you need is a good clear. You've already got a nice microphone set in the spit thing. So get a good studio, record the book, have someone sweeten the audio, add the music later. You'll be all right. Right. Cool. Easy peasy. All right, folks. Jeff, any closing remarks, tips, wisdom you want to leave with everybody?
The only thing I want to say, and it's because I know you won't toot your own horn to your audience, but you have been instrumental in especially that opening salvo of me going in this direction, and your help on the book was awesome. And I highly recommend, Doug, to any of you that are really looking into the idea of having your own book, and you need your own book. If you're going to be considered an expert, you do need that book. And Doug knows what he's doing. He actually is a good coach in this area. So I highly recommend him, and I know he won't toot his own horn, but I'll toot it for him on this. So,
well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we'll talk to you again real soon.
sounds good, buddy.
Okay. All right. Don't forget to click below, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, whatever works. We look forward to having you on the show if you've got a good story to share. This is Doug Crow from the Author Brand Show. You're going to want to take notes.